SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's episode of the iGaming Daily, brought to you by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 56% of the EGR Power 50 personalised player experiences with Optimove. And as a special offer, Optimove are providing new clients with a free first month when they buy Optimove. For more information and to claim the free first month, go to optimove.com/SBC. Links will, of course, be left in the podcast description. And we are joined once again by the CEO of Incentive Games, John Gordon. John, how are you doing? It's great to catch up with you again. Yeah, firstly, how are things? How's everything going with you?
Hi, nice to see you again, Joe. Yeah, things are great here at Incentive Towers. So I'm delighted to be back on your podcast. Excited for today.
Yeah, every time we catch up, it always seems like a real hub of activity at Incentive Towers. It always seems like there's so much going on. And it would be remiss of me not to ask you, we're going to talk about Crash Games and we're going to talk about the work environment at Incentive Towers today, amongst other things. But it would be remiss of me not to reflect on our last episode where we kind of spoke about free-to-play games and looked ahead to the Euros. And yeah, it's as you can imagine, it's tough for me to still talk about the Euros. It's still a little bit sore, but you predicted it would be a big summer for Predictor Games. How was it? How was the Euros for Incentive Games, aside from not talking about the results specifically, of course?
Yeah, no, it was great. We had comfortably the most entries into any free-to-play games in the world, into Incentive Games across Bet365 and LiveScore and some of our bigger clients, Flutters, some of Flutter brands across the world. And then we did have a game that we launched worldwide for another massive brand, but we've not allowed to mention it yet. We've not released the PR yet. So yeah, it was a very successful summer for Incentive Games in terms of tens of millions of entries into our Euro and Copa products. So it was good, smooth as well. And more importantly, not only the entries, but bug free, and we got the results we wanted in terms of the user behavior for our clients. So very successful. Thank you for asking.
Brilliant. I guess that is absolutely vital, isn't it? And I forgot to mention the Copa as well. Really played nicely to a schedule of football. And we have a couple of off weeks now. We're all kind of looking at the wall, not sure what to do with ourselves. But it leads you nicely onto the new season as well. Sets you up nicely. You're on the path to good engagement for the upcoming season.
Yeah, it reminds me of that Peeps Show episode where they say football just never stops. It just never stops. So with the football season coming up, again, we've got Bet365 and Sky Bet and LiveScore Bet and Virgin Bet and FanDuel stuff all to go live, along with that big client that I can't mention at the moment. So yeah, there's a lot of games going out, but we're more and more, well, not more and more, but half the company is sports. So free to play sports, and then the other half is free to play casino. So those games are just 24/7. And what we'll talk about today is we've now got this new vertical that's sort of bespoke pay to play games. So whether it be Crash or what we call sort of fast arcade style games that we're launching, as sort of part of the casino team are doing it. So there's pay to play Crash games and other types of products. So the company, there's a lot of focus on those new games as there's a huge demand for them. So it's quite exciting. Nice.
Definitely really exciting. And that Peep Show sketch you mentioned as well, it holds up. I see it recycled every few years and it really holds up. It still remains funny in 2024. But let's talk about Crash Games and just how much the market for Crash Games has evolved in recent years.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of our clients, or some of our clients over the years have said, look, Premier Bet is one of them. We used to be quite big in Africa on pay-to-play games, and they've been saying for us for a few years, can you do bespoke sort of Crash games for us probably wish I did it back then when they asked us. But no, the last year or so, we've been really focused in bringing a new masterpiece to the market. So we're just about to launch with Premier Bet, and I think we signed some of the big operators in Africa and South America. So the likes of ODBets have signed, in 888 Africa, and there's quite a few that are just about to drop in Africa. So we've got like a velocity or crash game system. So it's not just a copy of other crash games. Us being Incentive Games, we do things a little bit differently here. So we've got a whole crash game system for Africa and South America, which is quite exciting. So it's like a free-to-play product. And then at the end of it, we put our own pay-to-play crash game there. So it's like it's a free-to-play crash game. And then we get the people hooked on playing that free-to-play game, and then they win credits into our pay-to-play game. So we wouldn't go toe-to-toe with the current providers by just doing a copycat. So what we've got is a system that has about 7 or 8 unique selling points that makes it a much more compelling product line for us. So it's really exciting.
It isn't the velocity game system is kind of something that you mentioned is your own kind of take on it, your own perspective on it, your own thing you're bringing to the market. Just how important is it that you kind of have your own system behind the crash games? Yeah.
So as we spoke about before we went on air, I think we're very studious here at Incentive Games. We've got our data team. We just launched Incentive Labs recently, and then we just launched our AI area system, and where we analyze all the data of our current games. But when we go into, we're very thoughtful when we look into a new product vertical as well. And I think if you look at a lot of the sort of copycat products out there, not only the copying, they do the opposite from what we do, which is adding a lot of features on the front end. So how can we just put in, what about this feature? And they just put it on. And by the end of it, you've got a product that looks really messy, or it can look really confusing for the new user. So in my opinion, that's why a lot of these crash games or the copycat crash games, for want of a better term, haven't taken off. And a lot of the books that we read, and there's one that I would recommend called Scarcity Brain by Michael Easter. And what we found is removing things from a game or a product can actually help strengthen it. So it needs to be very thoughtfully done, but I think simplicity and ease of use can go a long way. So I won't give you the secret sauce, but I'll give you that's the sort of general direction that we're headed in, and then looking at what are the key core drivers to get that really compel people to play these games, as opposed to sitting in a silo and trying to think of what they want next, and keeping those key core components and trying to evolve on that, as opposed to just throwing stuff on the front end and see what works.
Do you think that's it's really interesting, and do you think it's kind of indicative of an industry, I won't say problem, but somewhere we're maybe going wrong as an industry is trying to over gamify things and trying to overcomplicate things, and maybe we do just need to hone down on a simple user experience that people can easily get into and easily enjoy?
I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think there's this tendency to just put half-baked features onto the front end of any product. And where we started this company 10, 11 years ago, when it was a fantasy football betting company, B2C, what we found is the more we simplified the product, the more uptake we got. So when, it was a weekly fantasy football betting product for the sort of hardcore enthusiasts, and then we eventually stripped it down to a sort of single game. So Man U v Chelsea, you choose 6 players and there's no budget cap. And what we found is the easier we made the product every time for users to play, the more millions of people entered our games. And that's where we see a lot of our competitors going the other way, where they add more and more features and are more and more complex. And that's what we call the scaffolding phase of any product. And if you don't get the proper onboarding and the millions and millions of users, there's no point in having a scaffolding phase, because you really just, your audience is so small. And then also, I would also say is if you look at how simple the iPhone is, and it used to be a button, now there's no buttons. That doesn't mean that it's not complex. And that doesn't mean that gamification, or whatever you'd like to call it, I mean, obviously we're the leading leader in the world at loyalty, gamification, retention. But if you look at our games, there's often just one button. And the more you ask the user to do on the front end, the more off-put they are in the long run. So do all the clever stuff in the background. That's what Incentive Labs is, and all the data and analyzation. But just ask the user to do one thing and we will do everything else. So again, it sounds very simple, but the more you do in the background, the less you make the user think, the more you will get them to retain on your product.
Okay, so where does the innovation come from then in terms of crash games and in terms of gaming? Does it come in the back end rather than on what the user sees?
Yeah, I mean, innovation, I mean, the product vertical came out of nowhere, a few years ago. And that itself was groundbreaking, but, all the other features I've seen since then aren't adding too much to the gameplay experience. So talking about the pay-to-play crash game itself, yes, keep it simple, but also double down on the principles that we've seen that work well on it. And what we're adding to the innovation is more to do with our free-to-play system, our segmentation within the free-to-play game, so we can see what they're paying on the pay-to-play product, and we can then use a feedback loop, what we call AI rewards, to reward the customers the right amount of money in a free-to-play game based on their pay-to-play user experience. And that sort of level of segmentation. So rather than having 4 segments, we've got 1.3 million on a certain operator. Every single user gets a specific reward in the free-to-play game based on their actual activity in the pay-to-play stuff in real time. And then we can continually measure and adapt that single user's segment, rather than clustering them, their customers rather than clusters. And for me, that's the clever stuff in the background that should be done, as opposed to shoving more shiny stuff on the front end, for example.
Yeah, that level of gratification is huge, I think, and rewarding players like that it can be really significant to boost in engagement, I think. And another factor with crash games that maybe we haven't seen tapped into yet is could we see a new layer of social interaction, and could we see them build the bridge to kind of social gaming? Yeah,
I mean, crash games, yes, are social, so there are chat functionality and such, but there's what we're doing on what we called arcade games or fast mini games. If you think of Stake.com original style, where they've got instant blackjack, mini roulette, tiles games, or mines games, or wheel or high-low and stuff. That's what we call sort of arcade games or mini games. We're adding a new layer on top of that, where it's maybe community-based, where you turn up on the hour, every hour between 12 noon and midnight, and play a community version of the product, similar but different to the community version of Crash. So there's a reason to come back on the hour every hour, but then once you've finished with the community version, you can play your own RNG version. So we see ourselves as forging a new sort of category of betting product, fast still betting product, that we're going to be deploying across the world in the next few months.
Yeah, and I guess to bring it to the kind of environment incentive, the environment that you're creating, I guess to build something like this, you can't have any working in silos. And even if different elements of the incentive games company they're very different, there kind of needs to be that communication. Is that key to kind of having the whole company communicating and getting everybody on board with what they learn?
Yeah, I mean, as a CEO, I've really only got 2 or 3 jobs, and one of them is to make sure that everyone's on board with our vision. So the vision is, we are very proud to be the number 1 free-to-play games provider in the world, and we built that reputation, and we're still true to that. But the company knows that these new type of products go hand in hand with what we've done in the past. So the free-to-play games, and then we feed them into these new sort of pay-to-play games, is part of our strategy, and we're all enthused on that. but the design and how it all hangs together will all be seamless as well. So that's transition from the free-to-play game to the pay-to-play products, and how they're all beautifully designed is all very well thought of as well. So it comes from our product and design team, and we get those suite of products, and then we hand them into our devs and build them out. And we're very fortunate that we also work closely with our clients, so FanDuel and Bet365 and the Premier Bets of the world, and we sort of involve them early on when we're in the product development and show them where we're headed with it. And then we sort of collaborate with them and give them a sort of masterpiece that they can really be proud of as well. So it's quite a different approach than maybe what you see with other quote unquote suppliers would do, which would be just build a game and, see who takes it. And we do things a little bit differently.
So that communication with the operators starts as early as possible, and then you can really build something that they want, that they think that is gonna tap into their player base. Yeah, and make sure it resonates with them. And so we come up with some designs, some concepts, and we show our friends and colleagues and partners at those companies that I mentioned, and we get their buy-in and we get their input, and we sort of collaborate together. So there's a big sense of ownership, and they can really get behind it and make sure that it is what they want as well. So it's really exciting. And more and more these days, operators want unique content. So we've seen that with our Sky Bet game, or Bet365 games, or FanDuel games, or LiveScore games, or Premier Bet games. They always want something different from the crowd, and when you get them involved early on, we can shape it to what their needs are. And that helps them get the market share advantage that working with incentive games can provide. So it's really key in their strategy as well. Unique content. How does it impact timescales? Does it decrease the timescale to getting a game out, or does it maybe increase the timescale, but it's worth it having that kind of close tie with the operator while you're building the game or the product, not necessarily the game, I should say? The foundations are there. So we've been building these games for 10 years or so. So the maths, the RNG certification is all done, and the back end and how we build games is relatively quickly, and we're already integrated with a lot of these operators. So I'm not saying the front end is trivial, but once it's signed off and we're in control of it, we've got all the developers in-house. So it's relatively straightforward when we're in control of our own destiny. And we work relatively quick, like compared to some other providers. Nice. It definitely provides for strong partnerships. And something else you mentioned kind of a moment ago was just the enthusiasm and how energized Incentive Games is. And that's something that reflects whenever I speak to anyone from the company. And it kind of made a bit more sense when I heard that you guys have a 4-day working week. I guess that can help fuel that energy and can stop staff being lethargic by the end of the week. Yeah, just talk to us more about that and how come you implemented a 4-day working week.
It's quite radical when we spoke about it. We've been doing it for a year and a half now or longer. I'm a bit of a workaholic, but I have been asking the team, for the last 6 years or so, we've been sort of running, I ran them hard, and it wasn't sustainable. And we were very fortunate to be in a position where the company's in a very strong financial position. So we decided to hire more people to make sure our team could take a bit more time off and have that work-life balance. And what seemed as a potential gamble has been paid off unbelievably, because what really matters is the quality of our output. And to keep that level of output, and for instance, let me work back from the games we provide have such a big impact on our clients' market share that we're able to charge a certain level for our services because it has such a big impact on our clients' operations. Therefore, we're able to provide a culture where we're able to have enough sufficient staff and cover the sort of 4-day week so that our staff have a great work-life balance. And therefore, more importantly, what happens then is we retain the people. So no one's really left in the last 2 years. And we went from a normal churn rate of a company from, say, 10, 15% to 0%. And what that has is a compound interest on retention and a compound interest on experience, and therefore a compound effect on their output. So we shifted about a year and a half to say, okay, we're the number one in the world at acquiring and retaining our clients' customers. Why don't we use that mindset to be the number one in our industry at acquiring, retaining the best staff? And that was the biggest tool for us to do that. We're very proud of it. And since then, no one leaves, and we love to just create the best place in the UK. Our aim is to be the best place to work in the UK. Nice.
It's commendable, and it's great to hear that it's worked so well. And I guess the other side of having staff come in and having no staff leaving is they can really understand the company culture, and they really understand and get behind it boosts them in getting behind the company goals as well, because they've been there for a while and they know the fabric of the company.
Yeah, for sure. We actually give up to very recently, because we had to stop it in the last couple of months. Every new employee gets share options in the company. But given the amount of staff we have now, we had to sort of put a stop to that. But say 90% of the employees have share options in the company. I'm very clear and open with our vision. We're a very transparent company as well. So it does help that everybody's just working in the same direction and pulling towards the same goal. And even I'm proud of something it was a year ago, we won an award for Great Place to Work, top 100 in the UK. And we had an independent survey done, and we got a 97% satisfaction rate, which we were extremely proud of by the Great Place to Work people. But then we conducted it again this year to find that we got 100% satisfaction. So we're really proud of that.
What do you think led to that increase?
I think it's just the continually doubling down and continually following through with all the promises and what we want to deliver to our staff and the environment. It's a 4-day week, but it's also completely hybrid or remote, or whatever the employees want to do. And that doesn't mean that we're some wacky, socialist company or whatever the case may be. We're very meticulous of who we hire. And then when we do hire them, we trust them, and we give them the tools, and we empower them to be the best and they want. There is a caveat to that. Now, I talk about this analogy between, Federer, Djokovic and Nadal, all being the best, probably the 3 best tennis players we've ever seen at the same time playing, all playing at the same time. But they've all got very different styles. So, Nadal's expending a lot of energy, making a lot of noise across the court, whereas Djokovic is very almost robot-like and emotionless. And then you see Federer, walking up 2 minutes before his match, and he's laughing, he's giggling, he's not sweating at all. So 3 very, very, very different styles, but 3 very successful, greatest, almost 3 of them as almost greatest of all time tennis players.
Yeah, it's a pertinent analogy. It's a really good one for sure.
And it just shows you that, that Federer approach or the Djokovic approach or the Nadal approach, it can, there's very different styles, and you can be a very successful company on any of those different ways. And we found that this is the most natural and best way for us to thrive as a company.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm gonna use that for sure. I'm gonna steal it. It's a really good one. And we are running out of time, so I'm going to ask you for potentially even a yes-no on these final two questions. Firstly, John, can you foresee crash games becoming a staple in operator offerings alongside, the likes of slots, poker and roulette? Are they going to really become a staple?
It already is. And yes, it's here to stay. Yeah, or else I wouldn't be doing it.
Good point. And maybe one that's a bit more of a long shot, but the 4-day working week, can it catch on across iGaming and across the wider working sector in the UK?
I hope not, because I get all the best talent in the world, and the longer everyone else is sleeping on this, the better it is for me. But yeah, I mean, eventually the benefits far outweigh any negatives for my company. That's for sure.
Good answer. Great answer. And a really insightful podcast, as always. Thanks ever so much for joining us. And we look out to some of the big partnerships, some of the big crash games coming, and the free-to-play games from Incentive Games as well. Thanks again, John. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much. And I look forward to coming back whenever you invite me on.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.